The MBA revolution has totally warped our understanding of the purpose of business, what it should do, and how it is supposed to serve humanity. As a juristic representative, any registered venture is a creation brought forth to serve and not to enslave or do harm to the society it serves. If you go back in time to the years of Brian Tracy, you can literally trace the true purpose of business as was intended. In his own words, he once said, "The purpose of business is to create and keep customers." On our journey to doing this, we've kind of gone astray, so to speak, where we are now more polarized towards profit maximization, as well as increasing our dominance in any given market, and no longer looking at the basic foundational requirements, and that is to create and keep customers. Because ultimately, you start any business because you saw a gap in the market. You saw an opportunity where the target market is willing and able to pay for its alleviation. And note what we are seeing in general life, where people build things because they're cool, they're cute, and all of the other things, without actually having any value to the customer or society as a whole. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode. It has been quite some time. I've needed a break and a chance to regroup, reorientate, and to understand what is it that I would like to get from these interactions, and also the kind of knowledge and input I would like to have. And more importantly, whether I want to keep this a conversation that is one-sided, or do I want to get more people in? And I think I've now gotten to a point where I understand how I'm going to go about this. It's taken a while, but I think the format going forward, we'll probably have one or two more of these kind of formats, which is one-on-one or one to all. And after that, we're going to go into an interesting format of actually having conversations of some of venture creators, builders, almost retired entrepreneurs, also retired entrepreneurs, to just understand what is it that has made them who they are, how it is that they wake up every day and do what they need to do, and various other key lessons that one can learn on the journey to actually building something. So let us continue on our journey and getting to the core of business development and new venture creation. I am Yongama Skweyiya, your host, Chief Advocate for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. I've been lucky enough to have spent a number of days in a beautiful little town, second-tier city in South Africa called Polokwane. It's on your way away from the capital, which is Pretoria, towards the Zimbabwean border at Beitbridge. This town was previously known as Pietersburg. I guess nothing to do with the Russians, but okay. It was known as Pietersburg, and it was named in 1889 after the Voortrekker leader Petrus Jacobus Joubert. I guess the Pietersburg comes from Petrus, who also served as vice president to Paul Kruger between 1883 and 1889. So this is deep apartheid years. The town was subsequently renamed after the fall of the apartheid regime to Polokwane, which means sanctuary in northern Sesotho. In many ways, this is quite a fitting name for this town, with some of the most soft-hearted and helpful people I have ever met. As I'm sitting in Polokwane, I keep on having the thoughts around what the purpose of business is. And this is largely spiked or sparked, at least, by the people that one meets, looking at the community, the society, what the people espouse in terms of progress and development for the region, the verticals that add meaningful employment to the area, largely being agriculture, mining, and some form of manufacturing that is about. And I'd like to join me on this journey as we look at the foundational reasons why anyone wants to be an entrepreneur, and more importantly, if business is still the means by which we can change the world. As I've sat with a few people here, the thought is maybe NGOs or other such configurations might be the future of development, which is quite a sad thing because I have never known any NGO that can add value in a sustainable way. There's some incredible NGOs doing beautiful work across the world, but none that I know of that do it in a sustainable way where they create value not just for themselves and their shareholders, but value for the customers who get to benefit from the solution or product or service that they've brought to the fore. So, let's delve into it and just get to understand and maybe reorientate ourselves as to why they actually go about embarking on entrepreneurship to begin with. So, first part of our conversation would be, why do businesses exist? Is it just to make money? Or is there something deeper, something more human at the core of commerce? For decades, business people have debated this question. Some, like Jack Welch, saw shareholder value as the ultimate goal. Others, like Simon Sinek, Brian Tracy, and Nassim Taleb, argued that business is about something bigger, solving problems, creating value, and even uplifting society. Today, we are diving into the real purpose of business, the value it must deliver, and how it can transform communities. So, the traditional view of business, as espoused by the likes of Jack Welch, is profit maximization. And most MBA courses and NBA lectures are around, especially in the 90s, less so in the 2000s, and it's getting a little bit less now. People are looking at ESG and triple bottom line, but there's still a strong profit maximization outlook for why businesses exist. So let's start with the classic argument. The purpose of business is to maximize shareholder value. This was the mantra of Jack Welch, the legendary CEO of General Electric. Under Welch, General Electric became a profit powerhouse, cutting costs, streamlining operations, and relentlessly focusing on the bottom line. And for a while, it worked. It worked incredibly so. You know, they were the darling of Wall Street. They were the ones that everyone wanted to look up to, up until it no longer did. Critics argue that the short-term profit focus can erode long-term sustainability, employee morale, and even customer trust. So let's dig a little bit deeper. Jack Welch was once hailed the CEO of the century. Under his leadership, General Electric's market value exploded from $14 billion to $400 billion. That's an incredible value creation opportunity and upswing from 14 to 400. His ruthless focus on profits, cost cutting, and shareholder returns made him a corporate legend. But today, General Electric is a shell of its former self. Its stock plummeted, its reputation tarnished, and its legacy one of short-term gains leading to short or to long-term ruin. which is quite a sad thing to think at a point that this business was worth $400 billion. So now you can ask, what went wrong? And why do thinkers like Simon Sinek, Brian Tracy, and Nassim Nicholas Taleb argue that Walsh's philosophy was fundamentally flawed and in many ways even toxic? Jack Welch didn't just run a company, he created an ideology. His core belief: a company's sole purpose is to maximize shareholder value. Everything else, be it employees, customers, long-term sustainability, they were all just secondary things that existed. Above all else, shareholder value needed to be maximized. He enforced this with three brutal strategies. Number one, it's the rank and yank. This is when, on an annual basis, Walsh would demand managers to fire their bottom 10% of employees regardless of performance. This created a culture of fear, internal competition, and short-term thinking. Secondly, the neutron jack. This was based on his system of ruthlessly cutting costs with only the building left standing. And lastly, the financialization over innovation. Financialization over innovation. What a big ass word. Financialization over innovation. Under Welsh, General Electric shifted from industrial innovation, which is what they are known for, to financial engineering. Then they became a capital powerhouse. Its GE Capital division became a profit center, making weaknesses in core businesses. And I think we see this also now with how Apple is going about doing things. They are financializing over innovation. During the time of Steve Jobs, innovation was at the core of the business. But now it's around how do they maximize profitability and hoard more cash. If you look at the products that they offer, substandard. But the system of making money improves on an annual basis. Last thing I heard is that they are looking at making payments easy and seamless between owners of the devices, which would mean that at some point they're going to go into full banking because that's where they are mentally already. Going back to General Electric, for a while, Wall Street loved Jack Welch. But beneath the surface, Welch's General Electric was a pressure cooker, sacrificing long-term health for quarterly earnings. As the age-old adage goes, like all empires built on shaky ground, Welch's General Electric eventually collapsed. Taking it back to the brutal strategy he introduced and the effects of the overall sustainability of the business. Firstly, the short-termism killed long-term growth. By obsessing over stock prices, General Electric stopped investing in R&D. This means that competitors were able to surpass them and outpace them in the market. As Brian Tracy says, if you chase money, it runs away. If you chase value, money follows. And General Electric did not do this. Secondly, the culture of fear or no loyalty and no trust was created. Employees were disposable. Talented people left. The ones who stayed learned to game the system, hitting short-term targets while ignoring long-term risks. As Simon Sinek says, great leaders create safe environments where people can take risks, not fear for their jobs. And this is so pivotal in keeping and growing a sustainable business over time. And again, with the financialization led catastrophe. General Electric's capitals, or the GE Capital's risky bets blew up in 2008, and we all know what happened in 2008. The division needed 139 billion government bailout. As Nassim Taleb points out, if your profits come from paper, not products, you are not a business, you're a casino. And this is what the business became, a casino. And again, I go back to what's happening now with Apple. It's no longer a business that builds products. It's becoming a paper business. Jack Welch's legacy is a cautionary tale. His ideology didn't just fail, it broke General Electric and damaged the broader economy. He retired in 2001 with a golden parachute. And by 2018, General Electric was booted from the Dow Jones. A stunning fall from grace for an organization that initially listed in 1896. The one manager touted as the greatest that General Electric has ever had was the one who destroyed the very fabric on what the company was about and the prestigious inertia it had accumulated over decades. It's a sad occurrence that a business over 100 years old was destroyed by the one person touted to be the greatest leader that it has ever had. It can be said that through this period of history, where General Electric was initially doing exceptionally well, a culture within the MBA fraternity was that profit is supreme. But is profit alone enough? Brian Tracy argues that while profit is essential for survival, it is not the ultimate purpose. He says, profit is the reward for creating value for others. The more value you create, the more profit you make. So if profit is the result, then what's the real purpose? So, the deeper the purpose, and the more that one delves into the purpose of business, one can get to an understanding that creating value for customers might be at the core of it all. Simon Sinek, author of Start With Why, says that great businesses don't just sell products, they sell belief systems. They exist to serve a purpose beyond money. Sinek articulated that most businesses communicate from the outside in, as in what do they do, how they do it, and maybe, if they are thoughtful, why they exist. Sinek argues that truly transformative organizations flip the script and they start with the why, by indicating why is it that they exist, how do they do it, and what do they do. And this is known as the golden circle. It emphasizes starting with why, the core purpose, belief, or cause that drives an individual or an organization, before moving to the how, the process of value that support the purpose, and then ultimately to the what, which is the tangible products or services that are offered. So, if the purpose of business is to create value, what kind of value should it create? Nassim Taleb, author of Skin in the Game, would argue it's about solving real problems, not just pushing products. He criticizes businesses that extract value without contributing. like some Wall Street firm or companies that prioritize optics over substance. And it's not just on Wall Street. In everyday businesses, people do this. They focus just on the superficial and not the true core of value creation that the business is supposed to actually put over or give to its customers. For Talib, a real business must have skin in the game. It must bear the consequences of its action just like its customers do. If one looks at the past 10 to 15 years on the emergence of asset light businesses, where you can have a hotel, but you don't own the buildings, or you can have a cab service or rideshare service without owning the assets. What this has resulted in is value creation only for a select few. Again, the shareholders and profit maximization. And there is nothing wrong with creating value for shareholders. This is why you actually get to be invested in. So shareholders can reap the benefits of taking the risk with you as the entrepreneur. But the problem with such systems that have no skin in the game is that when things go wrong, all they do is, oh, oopsie, and they move on. When people get hurt, killed, robbed, molested, or whatever type of hurt that they receive from these establishments, the company that was the access point for you as the customer to consume that product or service now stands back and says, no, but we are not the owners of this asset. And in so doing, they kind of erode that relationship that used to exist between you as the consumer and the supplier of that which you are consuming. In many ways, this is in line with what the ESG governance is all about. And for those that do not know what ESG, it is short for an investment principle that prioritizes environmental issues, which is the E, social issues, which is the S, and corporate governance, which is the G. All this articulates and assesses the sustainability and ethical issues facing a business. So, if the purpose of business is to solve problems, build trust, and create lasting value with profit as the natural outcome, then I think that would be the best way upon which MBAs should build the future leaders of business. I will repeat. The purpose of business should be to solve problems, build trust, and create lasting value with profit as the natural outcome. Business as a force for community upliftment. Now, let's take a step back, or maybe a step further. Yeah, let's rather call it a step further. Can businesses actually uplift communities? Businesses in South Africa and Africa uplift communities by creating jobs, fostering entrepreneurship, and addressing social needs. But they face hurdles like unemployment, crime, and infrastructure gaps. One of the incredible conversations I'm currently having at home, because we're trying to set up a philanthropy wing, is what is the definition of impact? Is it the fact that you invested or the outcomes of that investment? Is it that you created infrastructure where there was nothing before? Or is it that you gave an overlooked entrepreneur capital so they can start something? Though we don't yet have any outcomes or any concrete things to talk of at the moment. We are, however, on our way to actually producing something that is uniquely us in order to understand and determine what impact is. So, going in line with this conversation, environmentally sustainable practices like reducing waste or investing in green tech improve local living conditions. And this could be a starting point in terms of what businesses can do. According to the NPO Generation, a global nonprofit network, businesses play a critical role in shaping and enhancing their own sustainability, in shaping the fabric of communities. And in so doing, they enhance their own sustainability and the reputations that they have within the communities that they work in. And again, as I've indicated, I love the work done by NGOs, but NGOs lack the foundational ability to be sustainable because they are not creating value for sustainability to be a key element of their business model. They are there to speak to a need, then that need might or might not be in the capacity of the community to pay for. And therefore, there's no sustainable movement of I get value out of this thing, therefore I pay X amount. But they could create incredible impact by building wells, waterways, and various other things, bringing medicine closer to people. Great impact. To not take a single thing away from NGOs, but on a sustainability curve in terms of creating value, they still lacking to a large extent. And even for their own sustainability, that they no longer need outside income to function, or outside capital at least to function, is a thing that a lot of these organizations battle with on an annual basis. Now, Brian Tracy would say that businesses enable progress. They make goods and services more accessible, they create jobs, and they drive innovation. But Talib would warn against fake corporate social responsibility, where companies virtue signal without real impact. The key here is authenticity. Not that kind of thing where you list on your website, these are values of a business. And when you actually look at the practices and the people behind the business, those values are not in alignment. One needs authenticity. So, does the business genuinely improve lives, or is it just PR? So the best businesses don't just sell, they serve. They don't just profit, they empower. And then that is one of the key elements one can take from that in terms of understanding what value creation is in business and how you can go about building a business that will far outlive you and the generation upon which you are building it. If you look at some of the businesses that are sitting at generation 3, 4, and 5, it was not built on profit maximization. It was built on creating value exceptional like no other, that in years to come, that value is still applicable, tangible, and visible. And therefore, people keep on coming back to utilize either that service from that business or buy that product from that business. But those who come in to make a quick buck also quickly leave the dance floor. Now, by contrast, let's put Welsh against Sinak, Tracy, and Talib and see what needs to happen in order to build something that is concrete. Jack Welch's model prioritized shareholders above all, but Sinak, Tracy, and Talib argue that this is backwards. You must prioritize customers and employees first, and profits will surely follow. Welch's General Electric eventually declined, while purpose-driven companies like Amazon, which has a culture of being focused on customer obsession, or at least it did have that when the chair was still the founder. I am not so sure now. I am seeing and experiencing very interesting things there. And Microsoft, where they believe in empowering people. I don't know much about Microsoft, but I guess that is the belief, and all the Microsoft executives that I've ever come across seem to share that ideology. Both these organizations have thrived in the long term. Both these organizations are well over 30 years old, and they're doing exceptionally well as service providers, as product providers, as well as experience creators, which makes them sustainable over the long term. Though you may argue various things, especially on the side of Microsoft, in terms of their bundles to the customer, might hurt competitors. But if you look at it from a customer value perspective, it's incredible value that they produce or give to the customer in terms of software, as opposed to having to buy individual software applications. You can now buy one thing that gives you accessibility to many things. So on that basis, I think incredible business. They're doing very well for humanity and society as a whole. Some key takeaways I would like each one of us to think about is that profit is necessary, but it is not the purpose. The real purpose of business is to create value, solve problems, and when done correctly, it will uplift society. Let that just sink in. Profit is necessary, but it is not the purpose of business. The real purpose of business is to create value, solve problems, and if you do that correctly, you will be able to uplift society. Thank you once again for taking the time to listen and follow this pod. In many ways, this is my small contribution to a better venturing ecosystem and empowering entrepreneurs to build better and sustainable businesses. And I hope the key lessons that one gets from here are things that you can take forward in building your business, in further enriching your business, and also maybe if you have a much more mature business, to see how to pivot to something that can add value to society. Because ultimately, when we do die, or we don't take that money with us, those profits are meaningless. But the contribution that we did to society and the value that we were able to create are everything. This is Yongama Skweyiya signing off. Remember, the path to success isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. Until next time, let's keep the core strong.